Hey, yo, what's the deal? Miss your boy Tag from Pro Wrestling Tag, you know what I mean? As of this recording, it is 3:20 p.m., March 15, 2026, but the upload time to this is 11:30 p.m., you know what I mean? And, last night was mad ill, you know what I mean? Like, I seen this girl, you know what I mean? Like, I'm on the train coming back. You know what I mean? I seen this girl, what was crazy? Like when you're with your man, right? But then you kind of give me the eye and shit. I would have bagged the girl, but I'm like, nah, I don't want drama because not that I'm afraid of whoever the fuck she was with. I just don't want drama. Shorty was cute, you know what I mean? Like I think she was dark to brown, you know what I mean? She had braids. So I'm like, damn, she looked good to the motherfucker. But I said, fuck it. When I got home last night, I got home just in time to look at Wild Women of Wrestling, and me and Mama Tag. You know what I mean? I got some popcorn and shit. You know what I mean? And we watched the main event, which was for the Wild Trios Championship, with the champions top tier, which consists of Coach Campanelli, Candy Crush, and Gloria Glitter against Monsters of Metal, which is Fury, Chainsaw, and Daisy Lane. Daisy Lane to me is a low budget Alexa Bliss. You know what I mean? And it was a full metal mayhem match. Basically, it's kind of like a TLC match, but not necessarily. It's a weapons match in a bit. You know what I mean? And Monsters of Metal basically defeated top tier. You know what I mean? To be the Wild Trios Tag Team Championships. I ain't gonna lie. Like, top tier sucks. Like, they're not great. Like, honestly, and I love heels, but something about top tier they're just not great. You know what I mean? They're not fucking great. They're okay in the ring. You know what I mean? But they just, I don't know. It's just, they're okay. They're okay, but my favorite team right now, besides Fab Four, which is Miami Sweet Heat, Penelope Pick, and Lana Star, is this new group called the Enlightened, which I like a lot. It's the Classmaster, Samantha Smart, Pandemonium, and I'm trying to think of the other two, but they're like the new upcoming stable that's down there right now in Wild that it's getting a lot of traction. You know what I mean? And I think what's this girl named Ashley Blaze and Tara Strike? They wound up asking what's his face for a shot at the Wild Women's Tag Team the Wild Women's Tag Team Championships, which I do think that they're gonna wind up beating Miami Sweet Heat for, but. Nonetheless, that's not what the topic is about. This topic, and one other thing too. I got a video that I'm going to be dropping tomorrow. I'm going to record it today of a report that I see from Fightful that kind of proved my point about AEW and how they treat talent. Let's just say it's confirmed, right? Let's just really say it's confirmed and shit. But what I want to talk about today for a discussion video is, one thing I've noticed about WWE over the last 20 years, right? The main thing I notice about WWE is when it comes down to their developmental system, right? I always go back to OVW, right? Because OVW, to me, OVW was their greatest. It was their greatest developmental system ever, hands down. Because the stars that came out of that promotion alone, and the people they had alone. I mean, Cena, Orton, Batista, Lesnar, fucking Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin. Now, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, right? And so it had me thinking, and it seems like WWE is going back to those roots now. You know what I mean? Because look, just like the video that I dropped, right, today, where I spoke about how, WWE, they never left their formula when it came down to big people, right? To big stars, to the big guys and stuff. They never left their formula. And I think with a very, very, very strong developmental system, to me, it can blow out the indies. It does. It does. Let me get some water because I got something to say what AJ Styles had mentioned. And it's something that I agree with, but then, I kind of disagree. Hold on. Yeah, I just had to get some water. But so AJ Styles, it's funny that was mentioned, right? It's funny that, that he's in this conversation because in his podcast, right? He mentioned how, the indie guys and girls, they they achieve more. They achieve more or they have more longevity than the NIL people because of their understanding of the business. And I say, that's true. That is true. However, right? How do we know that the people who WWE is bringing in from the NIL program and the people who they're developing, how do we know if they're not having a understanding for the business? And again, you're starting to see a class where it is very similar to to what OVW was bringing. Okay, that's the one thing I can give about this version of NXT that we didn't get with Black and Gold. Okay, there is a difference. There is a clear difference. When Triple H was running Black and Gold, right? He mostly was pushing more of the indie stars, right? As opposed to the the developmentals, right? He's pushing those guys, right? So the developmental guys were there. Don't get it twisted. They were there. They were clearly there, right? But it seemed like, he gave more shine to, the guys and girls who was coming up, who basically was coming up from the developmental system, right? And coming up from the indies. Not the developmental system, but the indies, right? Adam Cole, Shinsuke Nakamura, Finn Balor, Samoa Joe, like those guys, right? And so on and so forth. Drew McIntyre, right? But remember, Drew McIntyre originally was part of developmental, if I'm not mistaken, right? But before that, right, you had FCW. Right? And FCW was, they weren't really pumping out. They weren't really pumping out. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention CM Punk and OVW. And yes, he came from the indies, but he learned a lot better from OVW than he did in the indies. Yes, right? But yes, he was a star. He was a star in Ring of Honor and such. Yeah, I understand that, right? But with FCW, right? They weren't really pumping out big stars. Like, yes, you had Moxley, you had Bryan Danielson. Yes, you had that, right? But they weren't as strong as OVW. And to me, a very strong developmental system like OVW is more advanced and it's more valuable than the indies because these are people who not only you're developing from the ground up, but also like you're basically fast tracking them into superstardom. Okay, you're doing a lot of that there. Then remember Rico, right? They built up so much people, right, from OVW that some of them, a lot of them is still is still wrestling. Shelton Benjamin, right? And again. Like, I do miss those days. I really do. If right now, I'll keep it a stack with you. Right now, if WWE was to, we're seeing that right now with the new NXT, right? We're seeing that now with the new NXT, and you're starting to see people get pumped up, pumped out and shit, right? From the developmental system. I mean, shit. Like, I can list like a good 6 or 7 people who came out of this new NXT that is, that's getting shine, right? Oh yeah, I forgot to mention. Nia Jax. You know what? If you want to put Nia Jax in there with the NXT, because she did come out from NXT, yes. But in terms of, she was, she's from Developmental, right? Nia Jax looked fucking good. I'm sorry. Like, she is, one thing about Samoans and Puerto Ricans are almost the same. They are almost the fucking same. Legit almost the same. Shout out to the Samoans, but, they're on the West Coast. There's no Samoans in New York. There's no Tongans in New York. If there is, it's extremely rare. I seen one in, what was it? I think when I went to Queens and stuff, we was on the bus. We had a conversation about something. He was cool as shit. He was mad cool. But nonetheless, right? Again, like I said, go back to OVW, right? OVW was pumping out, they were pumping out talents like there's no tomorrow, right? And they were great at it. They were great at what the fuck they were doing, right? If there was an OVW, matter of fact, what I was saying about the new NXT, right? NXT 3.0. Over the last several years, they've pumped out stars. I mean, they've clearly pumped out stars who are definitely recognizable, right? Braun Breaker, Trick Williams, Obafemi, right? Fucking Lash Legend, right? Tiffany Stratton, Kalani Jordan, right? And the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. You know what I mean? And so, again, you got to think. You have to fucking think, right? You have to think. And there's more. Shit, they got Kiana Carver. I mean, they got fucking Kiana Carver there, right? So, and Solo Sikoa is another one. Solo fucking Sikoa is another one, right? Who they carved up from this NXT, right? So, and there's more. Like I said, there's more. There's more. And with the NIL program kind of supplements that even more. It does. It really, really does, right? I would rather take that, right? Honestly, I would rather take that. But yes, they also do bring in, but it seems like they bring in more AEW people than anything else. And yes, you got TNA people there and such, right? Shit, Jada Parker's another one. Jada Parker is another one. How the fuck do I forget Jada Parker? How the fuck do I forget her? But again, like I said, yeah, I would rather take a very, very, very strong developmental system, right? A very strong one, as opposed to the indies, where, when it comes down to the indies, right? I'm gonna keep it a stack with y'all. When it comes down to the indies do not make, larger than life stars, right? The indies do not, because the difference between the indies and developmental is, at least with developmental, there's a structure. They look out for what the fuck you're doing. The indies don't. They don't. I would rather take that than, I would rather take if OVW was just like how it was back then now, right? Then, forget about it. And WWE has to forget about it. Fucking forget about it. Like, that would change the game. That would completely change the game because, again, you are developing people, from the ground up in that form. But like I said before, they're doing more and more and more of it, right? This is what the new NXT does. The new NXT is so reminiscent of OVW that, again, the people who they're building up and shit, and and we're not talking about people who they get from the indies. No. If you want to throw Carmelo Hayes, you know what? You want to throw Carmelo Hayes in there? Okay, throw him in there. Right? You can throw Carmelo Hayes in there. Right? Throw him in there. I'm not even going to put Javon Evans in there either. Know what I mean? I like Javon Evans. Don't get it twisted. I do. But we're talking about actual homegrown people coming from the indies. Not the indies, coming from an athletic background. Coming from there. I forgot to mention Miz. I forgot to throw in Miz. Miz was also an OVW, right? So I would rather take that, just that whole portion of developmental and just add it on into, I think that's what WWE would love to do, right? They love to go back to the way how OVW was, where they were pumping out, organic talent that were basically larger than life and such. And you knew that was the fucking future. You knew it. You basically knew it. Didn't Luke Gallows also come from OVW? You know what I mean? I think he did too. Speaking of OVW, and this has nothing to do with the topic. I'm done with the topic, but I do want to mention something real quick. And this is in a more serious matter. Speaking of OVW, I did see the video of the referee that had the seizure in that tag match. What pissed me the fuck off was the simple fact that the wrestlers seen that they seen that the ref had a fucking seizure, and they still decided to continue to do the fucking match. You know what I mean? They kicked him and they pushed him out the way. That pissed me off. So you mean to fucking tell me that you would rather finish a lousy fucking match and let a motherfucker just stand there while he's having a fucking seizure? That's fucked up. That is really fucked up. That's real fucked up. That's the shit that pissed me off. But I do hope that the ref I do hope that the ref get better and such, And on that note, I'm going to definitely holler at y'all mañana. You know what I mean? Y'all have a good night. I'm going to check y'all. Peace.